You know, the fact of the matter is that people have too much space in their houses, and we could just share our space with other family members. We would reduce our housing needs right there. And I think the number of housing units needed is a lot less than people think, because the old standard for housing is basically circa 1980, when people all lived in their own independent apartments or independent housing units. There was no doubling up at that time. And that's probably never going to be seen again in America. We're always going to be, well, you know, we have assimilation going on in LA right now. You know, assimilation is a two-way street. And so we're all living to live like Asians with multi-generational families. That's the American way now.
It feels to me like the government is planning for poverty. Long term, 30, 40, 50 years from now, they're planning for poverty.
Because you really brought in lots of elements of the future and how much things have changed. Is the future is coming very slowly, or it was coming very slowly until about 2005, and then it really speeded up. And what was it in 2005? Well, just roughly around that time, I think the invention of the smartphone was a key ingredient.
You know, and also too, those reality Google
Google, yeah.
It's interesting because I've never been interested in them because I always thought they were about gaming.
Yeah.
But you're saying that there's a possibility that we can enjoy them.
Like we, like grown-ups?
Like we, meaning people that don't do games.
We, not 13-year-old boys?
Yes.
Yes, and indeed. What we're talking about here is virtual reality. And we're seeing a bunch of products that are in development. The Oculus Rift is one of the big dogs out there. There you're seeing it. So you see this face mask, you're seeing the headphones, and it creates a virtual reality sensation. This is kind of what you would see in there. You can turn your head 360 degrees and see things. You can look up, you can look down. You're basically creating an entire virtual world in there. Oculus was purchased by Facebook for $2 billion last year. Time, a lot of us are thinking, what does Facebook know that the rest of us don't? Well, we're going to get a sense of that in the first quarter of next year, because that's when finally Oculus is saying the consumer version of this, there's been a developer version out there, but the consumer version will finally be available. And to answer your question, Lou, obviously gamers are going to just have a tizzy fit about this because it's going to be so cool. But what else can we do with it? Well, you'll be able to socialize with people, obviously. They're talking about also virtual travel, where you put this on and actually be able to go places. Virtual museum visits are also a very big deal. Imagine being able to go to the Smithsonian and interact with all the exhibits virtually without having to leave home, without having to leave home, without having to leave home. That's also a very big deal.
Socializing with that on, I'm not sure. You know, they'll probably end up opening a bar with, and we'll all have those things.
Here's how it's going to work. Your KTLA viewers are going to put on they're going to put on their Oculus Rift, they're going to be watching the 1 p.m. news, and then they'll be able to look this way and that way and see us.
Oh.
Hi, Mom. Like
That's
that.
really interesting.
It is kind of cool.
It is.
Maybe take a vacation to Hawaii, a 2-week vacation in 60 minutes.
I think the biggest question here is, how is the intersection of the recession with the social change going to really amplify it? Imagine if the baby boomers had grown up in the Great Depression. That's what we're thinking about here. So now the millennials are growing up in the Great Recession and the lingering effects thereof. And I think that a lot of their behaviors, which might have been temporary, are beginning to seem like habits. And the longer they engage in these temporary habits, the more entrenched they become. I think that at least half of them are going to end up living in houses in the suburbs. But it used to be 3/4. Now it's only half. The other half, we don't know what they're going to do. But I think they're going to be living in your apartments that you're going to be putting on top of the rail stations on the 1% of the land. Is that what you said, 1%? It's going to house them all together there, and they're going to love doing it because you're going to have a coffee shop in every corner, and you're going to have, you know, all of everything they need self-contained in these little urban villages, which are absolutely essential because traffic congestion will stop them from ever leaving their village. Right. We see it today already. It's very hard to get our dean to come out of Santa Monica. He's sort of trapped on the other side of the 405, But he carpools with his wife, and they have a route they sneak out, every morning early, and they go back, before it gets dark. People live in these villages. Trita lives in the Pasadena village with me, so I see him more than I see anybody who lives in the Culver City village. So we're going to have more of that villageization, I don't know what to call it, of the Skag area, and I think we'll all be happier for it. But it is a very exciting time because the future has speeded up, and it's a good time for you to. It happens on your watch, so it's a great time for us that you're watching it and you're on command, because the changes that are going to occur right now are probably going to set in place a pattern for the next 30 years, and it's happening in a very compressed time frame. So the future is happening all of a sudden now very rapidly, and I'm glad I can sit back and watch it. So. How would you explain all the remaining problems you have to solve?
And maybe next talk, but I would just, in a great nation like ours, you can't let people do what they want. It has to be coordinated. In a great nation like ours, you can't let people do what they want. It has to be coordinated.
Right, exactly. And we know one of the keys to helping an empire is creating jobs for the 21st century. Those jobs that are going to be based on STEM learning, those jobs that are going to have technology components to them. We know that those are the types of forward-thinking ideas we need to support. And the key is how do we ensure that our teachers have the ability to teach that, and make sure that our young people have resources to learn those concepts.